So now we're gonna go to the cons, okay? I like to focus on the positive because it's very easy to focus on the negative. But number one con for me is burnout, okay? I remember years ago, I was working, in another hospital that did everything, OB, adults, pediatrics. Learned so much there. And I remember hearing a lot of nurses saying, oh, I'm suffering from burnout. I would see articles in the journals and the medical magazines, burnout this. And I was like, it's one of those things that's kind of like, I guess, like depression. If you've never experienced it and you hear people talk about it, you're like, I don't think that's real, which is a very false, biased way of thinking, because how can you say it's not real if you've never experienced it, But years later, working the night shift at this pediatric hospital, just the monotony and the doing the same thing over and over every night, having the same, patients every night, I started to feel this burnout. And I think it really manifested, at least in me, as a lack of empathy. And that to me is the worst, because I'm very social, I'm very outgoing, I love talking to people, I love talking to patients. So for me to not feel empathy, if I have somebody there that's kind of suffering, but they might not be really, they might have like an ovarian cyst that ruptured, not a big deal. It's not life or death, but they're suffering. And I'm like, bro, whatever, go home. That lack of empathy is concerning for me. And I think a lot of hospitals do try to remedy the burnout situation by doing, yoga classes, or they'll give you a tote bag with things in it that you really don't care about, or a pin, But I honestly don't think none of those things work. Maybe it does for some people, but for me, it doesn't. Honestly, to this day, I still kind of suffer from the burnout. But I got to give myself pep talks sometimes. I got to tell myself, hey, you're here to work. You're going to do a bunch of patients. Some of them may not even belong in the ER or here, but some of them do, but that's not your prerogative. Your prerogative is to do your job, and that's to do ultrasounds and try to find a diagnosis or a normal scan for somebody. So I kind of got to give myself a pep talk, because it can get very busy and you feel wrung out. And I work by myself. I work with nobody else all night. So if I do 20 patients by myself, I got to eat all those patients by myself. So that's also where the burnout comes. I think when I work the fact that I never suffered burnout when I worked during the day with a team of people, that you can kind of, go back and forth with your struggles with them, and they kind of understand it. And just that camaraderie that comes with working with people and working with good people. Not having that, after a few years, at first I was loving it. I love working by myself. I'm very self-sufficient. But after a few years, it kind of started to get me down. And I still kind of suffer from it. I guess it's like a depression. If you've ever had a depression once, you always fear that depression coming back. And for the most part, I kind of changed my schedule a little bit so I can work a few hours during the day on 2 days, because I work 3 days a week, but one of the days is Saturday. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, I work a few hours with some coworkers, and that kind of reinvigorates me and keeps me good for the rest of the night for once they leave after 11. Honestly, I don't know what people can do for seasoned sonographers or seasoned healthcare workers. I don't know what the remedy is for burnout for them. Sometimes it might even just be leaving the career. Sometimes that's it. You've reached a point where it's just not for you anymore. So if you guys have ever felt burnout, put in the comment sections, what do you do? How have you gotten over it? Did you just quit your career and started something else? Or maybe you went to therapy, maybe changed your hours? I would like to know. All right, on to the next con, musculoskeletal injuries. Very common. You hear about it a lot. When I started, I never heard anything about that stuff, but I saw that there was journal articles that were published, but they never talked about it with us. But as years have gone by, it's very common now. Everybody talks about it. Musculoskeletal injuries. You're scanning, and your trap muscle is very stiff. Your deltoid is very stiff. The tendons in your elbows are very stiff. It's very easy to get tennis elbow. I do get pain here all the time. I'm not one to complain much, but for many years already, I get some pretty bad tennis elbow. And even when I'm not working, like right now, I touch it and it's fine. But maybe 2 days ago, I pressed on it and I was like, oof, it's tender. So maybe that's a bit of tendonitis. There's some nights where I'm working and I've been scanning for a long time and doing a lot of patients, and all this is just on fire. Now, I don't consider that a musculoskeletal injury, That's just fatigue, overworked muscles, but very tense, just super hot. And you just feel that warmth. You're like, wow, man, my arm, it's like if I've been lifting weights, but I'm not, and it's just not very healthy. There's ergonomics. There's, they sell these straps that you can kind of put your cable through. They have newer chairs where you kind of like sit ergonomically to scan, but it's very easy to do bad mechanics with anything, lifting boxes, doing anything, sometimes you're in the ICU and there's no room. There's like a room a little bit for your humongous machine, and there's the patient there, and there's just no room. And, you gotta, do this and scan like that. And, if you do that enough, obviously you try to position yourself in a way that you limit those weird positions, but sometimes it's impossible. So just keep ergonomics in mind. You don't want to injure yourself, because if you get an injury that's severe enough, it could be career ending. So that's something to consider. Musculoskeletal injuries. Think about ergonomics. Think about your scanning. We're always thinking about getting good images. Ergonomics is very important. Thinking of how you're moving, being very cognizant of your body, because this is our, a painter has a brush. Our body is our tool to make our images. All right, so on to the next con, and for lack of a better phrase or term, is factory style work. The hospital, healthcare is a business, and the number one goal of businesses is to make money. They'll tell you, oh no, we're here to provide you the greatest services. We're here to improve human health. We're here to give you the best cell phones. It's to make money. Number one, plain and simple. Everything else is secondary. And if they tell you otherwise, it's not true. Businesses need to make money. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. So a hospital wants you to do as many ultrasounds as humanly possible every day you're on shift. Otherwise, they wouldn't tell you and give you these little graphs. So like, oh, you see, last year, you did this many ultrasounds. This year, you did this many, and you've done less. You need to bump up those numbers. Or they'll be like, oh, this was the census of the hospital last year, and this was how many ultrasounds we did, and we're down. They're always telling you about that. Oh, we're down. Oh, we're down. Why? Why? You think, oh, that's good. That means less people are sick. No, because they're making less money. So that part of the job, but that's every job. So that's just a con for having to work for someone else in any career, in any job, in any field. Is that you're a machine and you have to make money. You're just go. Oh yeah, you can take a quick break, but once you're done, come right back and go. Do as many patients as you can. Scan as many patients as you can. And I think that could also go back to talking about burnout. That could lead to burnout. That could lead to dissatisfaction. That could lead to a lot of problems. Especially when you feel like you're doing a good job and somebody comes and tells you you're not doing enough. So I hate that. But that's just part of the beast. That's every job really. That you're literally just one person on a factory line. And there's jokes. I've seen cartoons and memes where they're like, oh, we're going to install a new CT machine, and it's just a rotating belt. You put one patient after another and they just go through it. And the reason those jokes exist is because it's true. There's some truth in those jokes. All right, so on to the next con. Con number 4 is working with people who don't pull their weight. Oh, so just working with bad coworkers, So sometimes I'm very fast at doing ultrasound, so I pretty much scan faster than most people I work with, and that's fine. They might criticize me and say, oh, I've actually heard the criticisms like, oh, he's too fast. He's going to miss something. And I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but that's just how I work. I'm very excitable. I work fast with everything. So if I'm doing 2 to 3 patients to their 1, that's fine. That just means I'm fast. But if I'm doing 2 to 3 patients and they're doing none, that can be a problem. Nobody wants to do all the work while somebody else just, hangs out and does nothing. Another problem is portables. There's always that somebody or those somebodies or those people in the department that choose or not choose, but really don't like doing portables. So try to do everything to not do portables. That can be a humongous pain in the neck because everybody's got to do it, Now, if there's always that one person that never does portables and never really kind of gets, you know, I don't like people to get in trouble, but they don't get any, nothing happens about it. That behavior doesn't get rectified. They're going to keep on doing it. And that could be a point of contention with coworkers. I've been blessed to work with many great people. There's always those few that, are like that, but again, that's like every job. If you work in Chili's, if you work at any restaurant, if you work in retail, there's always going to be the people who do, good work, try to do their job right. They don't have to be overachievers and try to do everything, but there's always those people who do the bare minimum or even less. And that can be a point of contention. So that's another con. And then the last con, oddly enough, in the pros, I said help people, which is probably number one. But and the last con is also people, patience. I've worked with many, 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 many great people, many great patients that their stories have changed my life. But you're also in a service industry, and there's going to be people who are not satisfied and not happy. Just the other day, I made this TikTok, joke video with the trend where you say something and then this dramatic music comes on and you get up and you start talking about it. Oh, why don't you go? It was about a patient leaving AMA. I'm pretending that didn't even happen that night, but it was just a joke. I'm like, oh, this patient's complaining and that they want to go. And I get up and I'm like, well, go. You don't belong here. And I thought most people found it funny because they can relate. Doesn't mean I don't like people or I don't want people to be in the ER or I don't understand their suffering. But one person sent me a message on Facebook. They said I stink. They're like, oh, I don't think that represents diagnostic medical sonographers. That's a very rude joke and you stink. So I didn't engage. I just blocked her from the page because I don't really care what she thinks. But I thought that was pretty funny. So you can see, besides musculoskeletal injuries, which also happens with many jobs, all types of, occupational health hazards happen with many jobs. Most of the cons are things that are going to happen in other jobs too. So if you take any of these cons, and I'm pretty sure there's others, in the comment sections, what are your pros? What are your cons? What do you love about ultrasound? And what do you hate about ultrasound? Well, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to vent a little bit about pros and cons. Hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the little notification bell. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and you could also find my website at sonographictendencies.com. Thank you.